geeks and comic book losers and all the smart sorts. This is for the tabletop dice rollers and poetry readers and every nerdy kid who's still repping the art forms.
Welcome to the Comic Drop. I'm your host Antonio, and this is your weekly spot for new comics and comic news. This is Hideo Comics in Santa Monica. Let's get right to it. The first comic I want to talk about this week is Darth Vader #1 by Karen Gillan and Salvador Larroca. It's part of the continuation of Marvel's new licensing deal with Star Wars, and the events of this issue pick up right after the first arc of Jason Aaron's Star Wars. If you like Star Wars, this is the book for you. It really goes into the decisions that Darth Vader is eventually going to make in Return of the Jedi and how he comes to those, sort of moral choices. It deals with, it's not too easy being an apprentice of a Sith Lord, and it's not very fun either. And the issue also has a cameo from a great Star Wars character that a lot of you guys probably love, and the way they handle it, I'm not going to spoil it, but it's sort of like an evil Han and Chewie dynamic, so I'm very excited to see where that goes. I give Darth Vader #1 4 out of 5 Womp Rats. The next comic I want to talk about today is Thor #5 by Jason Aaron and George Molina. This is the next chapter in the Thor series, and it's really great. We get to see Thor take on some of Thor's... Wow, that's very confusing. You get to see the new Thor take on some of the old Thor's most famous bad guys, namely Absorbing Man and his wife Titania. And we sort of have Absorbing Man serve as the devil's advocate, as I guess you would say, though he's an actual villain, so he can be the devil's advocate. And Titania sort of serves as the empowering figure. Basically, she is really respectful of what the new Thor is doing, and I kind of like their dynamic in this issue. The new Thor is here to stay, and Odin doesn't like it, so we get to see a bit of what he's going to do to put an end to it. And Freya and the Odin son, as we're calling him now, are up to help the new Thor. And so I'm really excited to see what's going forward, and I really like that they are focusing on who this female Thor could be, but the point of the story is that it shouldn't matter, and that's what's important. So yeah, I think that this issue was a lot of fun, and I suggest you guys pick it up if you like Thor, if you like badass women, and if you like Jason Aaron. Next on the list is Amazing Spider-Man #14. It's actually part 6 in the Spider-Verse series, and it is the finale for the big event. If you've been keeping up with Spider-Verse, basically every Spider-Man from any multiversal dimension that you could imagine has been teaming up. We're talking Spider-Ham, Peter Paragor, the Indian Spider-Man, the super mecha robot Spider-Man. It's just everything you could imagine. And so this is where it all comes down. And we get to see a badass opening with Spider-Gwen taking down some goblins, and Peter Parker, rightfully so, a little nervous about it, but she totally kicks ass. And from there, we just get right into dealing with the inheritors and what they want from the Spider family. And the ending is pretty satisfactory, but it does leave a lot of questions as to where will the Spider-Verse characters go from here on out. I won't tell you who lives or dies, but there's some big surprises in this issue. If you like Spider-Man, I strongly suggest you start with Spider-Verse. It's a good book that has a lot of fun for any new and old Spider-Man fans, and Spider-Gwen is introduced in it, and she is honestly the best character Marvel has currently. So yeah, that is my totally unbiased view of Spider-Verse, Amazing Spider-Man #14. Next on the list is Batman Eternal #45. We are coming to the end of the Batman Eternal saga, given to us by Scott Snyder and James Tynion IV. The art this issue is by Javi Fernandez, or Javi Fernandez, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it. He's a new artist to me, but his art in this issue is phenomenal. Really, this is my favorite artist that Batman Eternal has had so far, and they've had a lot of great artists. Batman 45... Obviously, if you aren't reading Batman Eternal, you need to start picking it up because it's awesome. It's like the day-to-day happenings of Gotham. While Snyder's main Batman series deals with what the Dark Knight detective is doing on his own time, this is sort of the entire Bat family story, and has been introducing Bluebird, Harper Row, which is essentially the new female Nightwing, though she's a great character on her own and does not need to take cues from any other Bat family member. This issue really gives you more of an idea of her dynamic between Harper Row and Spoiler, and we get to see some more Batwing, and that's always nice. Oh, and Jim Corrigan, the Spectre. And this issue of Batman 45 is great, and I can't wait to see what the finale has to offer us. Last this week, we have Guardians of the Galaxy #24, part 2 of the Black Vortex crossover with all new X-Men and the Guardians. This is by Brian Michael Bendis with art by Valerio Schiti, who, by the way, his art is awesome. He did the art for the Battle Beast miniseries at IDW and New Avengers recently with Jonathan Hickman. He's quickly becoming one of my favorite Marvel artists, and his art does not disappoint in this issue. We see some Black Vortex versions of the Guardians this time around, mainly Gamora, and she dominates this issue. This really is Gamora's issue. Not to mention, we get to see a nice dynamic between Kitty Pryde and Star-Lord. And my personal favorite moment in the book is when they bring up the Phoenix Force and how the Black Vortex is this item of power, and should they use it or not. And Kitty's sort of defense is the Phoenix Force. Do you not remember what happened every time someone tries to use the Phoenix Force? And Rocket basically says, you guys think you invented that? Like, this exists in the universe. We know what the Phoenix Force is. We are the guardians of the galaxy, not Earth, you know? So I feel like it's cool to see how they both have a valid point of not using it. And one of the X-Men ends up using it at the end of the issue. Won't tell you who, but they look pretty cool. So yeah, Black Vortex Part 2, still not my favorite event by Brian Michael Bendis. Art is phenomenal, so I suggest you pick up both the first one and the second one for the art alone. But stick with it. I do think it will get better, and it's a lot of fun. So, I mean, that's more than you can ask. Alright, now that I've told you my picks of the week for comics, let's move on to some comic news. Last week, Friday, was a pretty big week for both DC and Marvel fans alike. Starting with the big reveal on The View, Marvel announced their new all-female superhero team, A-Force. This book is written by G. Willow Wilson, who you might know from Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan's storyline. Hopefully I'm pronouncing her name right. G. Willow Wilson is a phenomenal writer, and I'm very excited to see what she does with this new all-female team. There's a lot of great people on the cover they showed. Some characters like Spider-Gwen, and a few other great ones. So I'm very excited to see what the series has to offer us, and it's coming out of the Secret Wars event this summer, so look forward to that. Alright, the next big piece of news for DC fans was also announced last Friday. DC is officially ending the New 52 publication title. We'll be moving forward with 24 new series and 25 ongoing. So it's not a change in continuity, not a reboot, just a relaunch. And what they said is they're really pushing for more diversity with their new lineup of titles. Personally, the ones that interest me the most are Midnighter, which is, I think, the first openly gay superhero to have his own book, and Prez, which details a young teenage girl as president of the United States. Sounds a little problematic, but I feel like it's going to be a lot of fun. The rest of the series look great. I'll have a full link to all of the listings in the description of this video so you can check them all out and get excited as I am. The last bit of news I wanted to talk about this week was a subscription service called Scribd just signed a huge deal with Marvel and IDW Comics to basically put digital comics on their site. They claim to be the Netflix of books, and I guess now it goes to be the Netflix of comics. So what this means is that you can now read over 10,000 digital comics anywhere from any device. It's about $10 a month currently, but if you go through IDW's website, you can get a 2-month free trial. I strongly suggest it. It doesn't have the best selection in the world, but for 2 months for free, it's a lot of great stuff. And personally, I suggest reading the first 4 volumes of Jonathan Hickman's Fantastic Four. Thank you for watching The Comic Drop. We'll be back next Wednesday with new comics and comic news. We've been in Heidi Ho Comics today, and we will be back here next week. It's a fantastic comic book store, and I suggest you check it out if you live in Santa Monica. Please follow us on Facebook, like our Instagram, Twitter, and please like and subscribe to us on YouTube. Let us know in the comments what your picks of the week were, and if you agree with any of the ones we said. Have a great night.